Malik was a bright and curious 10-year-old boy. He loved airplanes more than anything else in the world. His room was filled with airplane models, posters of jets and helicopters, and books about flying. Every night before going to bed, he would dream of soaring high in the sky, looking down at the tiny towns and rivers below. Malik wasn't just fascinated by airplanes. He wanted to be a pilot one day. He wanted to wear a crisp uniform, sit in the cockpit, and fly planes to faraway places. One sunny Saturday morning, Malik went to the small regional airport near his home. He was not alone. His uncle, who worked as a ground technician at the airport, had taken the day off to bring Malik along. Malik's uncle loved airplanes too, and he often showed Malik how things worked behind the scenes. Malik felt special, because he was with someone who knew a lot about planes. Malik wore his favorite jacket that day, a little pilot jacket with shiny buttons and golden stripes on the sleeves. It made him feel like a real pilot. He carried a small notebook and pencil in his pocket. Malik loved to draw, and he was always sketching different airplanes or writing down facts he learned. Today, he planned to draw the big planes he would see at the airport. When they arrived, Malik's eyes grew wide with excitement. The airport was busy, but not too crowded. Planes were parked on the runway, some big enough to carry hundreds of passengers, and others small and light, like the one his uncle worked on. The smell of fuel mixed with the fresh air, and the distant hum of engines filled the space. Malik felt like he had entered a magical world. His uncle showed him around the hangars and explained how pilots checked their planes before flying. Malik listened carefully, asking many questions. He learned about wings, engines, and the different controls inside a cockpit. His uncle was patient and proud of Malik's interest. After some time, Malik moved to the observation area, a safe place where visitors could watch planes take off and land. He sat on a bench and opened his notebook. He started drawing the airplane, parked nearby, a small white Cessna with red stripes. He sketched the shape of the wings, the wheels, and even the propeller at the front. While Malik was focused on his drawing, a pilot was getting ready to fly the same small plane. The pilot was a man in his late 40s, dressed in a neat uniform with a pilot's hat. He noticed Malik staring at the plane and writing in his notebook. At first, the pilot thought Malik was just an enthusiastic child, but soon he started feeling uneasy. The pilot's eyes followed Malik as he moved closer to the plane. Malik was not doing anything wrong. He was just curious and polite. But the pilot remembered stories he had heard about security risks and strangers near airplanes. He felt nervous and decided to act quickly, without approaching Malik or asking, "Any questions?" The pilot took out his phone and called airport security. He said he was worried about a young boy who was near his plane, writing things down. The pilot suggested the boy might be scouting the area for something illegal. The security officer listened carefully and promised to send someone to check the situation. Malik was still unaware of the trouble he was about to face. He continued sketching happily, occasionally looking up at the planes taking off. Then two airport security officers approached him. Their faces were serious and not friendly. "Hello, young man," one officer said. "Can you tell us what you are doing here?" Malik smiled nervously and said, "I'm just drawing the plane. I want to be a pilot someday." The officers looked at each other, but didn't smile back. They asked for Malik's name and who he was with. Malik told them about his uncle, who was working nearby. The officers said they needed to ask some questions and insisted Malik come with them for further checks. Malik's heart started pounding. He felt scared and confused. He tried to tell them his uncle was nearby and that he wasn't doing anything wrong, but the officers were firm. Malik was taken to a small security office, away from the public's view. His notebook and pencil were taken from him as evidence. Inside the office, Malik was asked many questions by the officers. They asked why he was drawing, who taught him about planes, and if he knew anyone involved in bad activities. Malik did his best to answer honestly, but some of the questions made him more confused and upset. Meanwhile, his uncle realized Malik was missing and went looking for him. He asked other workers, but no one knew where Malik had gone. When the security officers told him what happened, the uncle was shocked and angry. He quickly went to the security office to be with Malik. Malik wanted to call his father, but the officers said he couldn't until they finished questioning him. His father, Malcolm Harris, was an important man. He worked for the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, the government agency responsible for aviation safety. But the officers did not know this yet. Outside the office, some airport workers and visitors started to notice the situation. Some whispered to each other, wondering why a child was being treated like a suspect. Others felt uncomfortable but did not speak up. Malik sat quietly, feeling sad and scared. He didn't understand why the pilot thought he was dangerous. He had only been dreaming about airplanes and trying to learn. The pilot, who called the police, watched from a distance, feeling a strange mix of relief and worry. He had wanted to be safe, but now he wasn't sure if he had done the right thing. His eyes kept shifting nervously between Malik and the growing crowd. Finally, after what seemed like hours, Malik's father arrived at the airport. He had received a call from Malik's uncle. Malcolm Harris walked briskly through the terminal. He was calm but serious, wearing a sharp suit that showed he was a man used to responsibility. When Malcolm saw Malik sitting in the security office, he immediately asked to speak with the officers in charge. He showed his FAA identification and explained who he was. The officers listened carefully, and the atmosphere began to change. Malik's father knelt down and gently held his son's hand. He told Malik that everything would be okay and that he was proud of his dream to become a pilot. Malik felt comforted for the first time that day. The pilot who had made the call realized his mistake. He approached Malcolm but avoided eye contact. Malcolm spoke firmly but without anger, explaining how fear and assumptions had led to this unnecessary trouble. The crowd outside was now watching closely. Someone had started recording the scene on their phone. Malik's story was about to reach many people. That day, Malik learned an important and painful lesson about how sometimes people judge others based on how they look, not who they really are. But he also saw how having someone powerful and caring by his side could make a difference. Even though Malik's visit to the airport had turned scary, his love for airplanes was stronger than ever. He promised himself that one day he would become a pilot and help make the skies safe and welcoming for everyone. After Malik was taken to the security office, the mood around the airport changed. People who had been watching quietly before started talking among themselves. Some were confused, some were angry, and many were just sad about what was happening. To such a young boy, Malik sat nervously in the small room, feeling very alone. The officers were serious and kept asking questions. They looked at his notebook like it was something very important, but Malik only saw his own drawings and simple notes about airplanes. Malik tried to explain that he wasn't doing anything wrong. He said, "I was just drawing the planes because I want to be a pilot one day." But the officers seemed to hear something different. They asked questions like, "Who told you to write these things down?" And, "Do you know anyone who might want to harm an airplane?" Malik shook his head and repeated, "No, I don't know anyone like that." The questions made Malik more scared. He missed his uncle, who had been with him earlier, and he wanted to call his father. But the officers said it wasn't time yet. They said they needed to finish asking questions first. Malik didn't understand why this was happening to him. He was just a child who loved airplanes and wanted to learn. Meanwhile, Malik's uncle was rushing around the airport trying to find him. When he learned from the security officers where Malik was, he felt a mix of anger and worry. He knew Malik was innocent, but the officers were treating him like a criminal. The uncle's face was serious as he entered the security office and sat beside Malik. He held Malik's hand and told him, "Everything will be okay. I'm here now." Malik felt a little better hearing that, but the fear still stayed in his heart. The notebook Malik had was taken as evidence. The officers looked closely at the pages filled with drawings of airplanes and notes about wings, engines, and controls. To them, these innocent drawings looked like secret plans. They didn't understand that Malik was only a curious boy with dreams. The officers even said the notebook would be sent to an investigation team to see if there was anything suspicious inside. Malik watched helplessly as his precious notebook was taken away. Outside the security office, a small crowd had gathered. People started talking about what had happened. Some parents were upset, worried about how a child was treated at a place where everyone should feel safe. A few people took out their phones and started recording the scene. The more they watched, the more they realized this was not just a simple security check. It was something serious, and it was unfair. Malik's father, Malcolm Harris, had been out of town earlier that day for work. He was the deputy administrator at the FAA, a very important position. When Malik's uncle called him, he didn't hesitate for a second. He left his meeting and rushed to the airport. On his way there, Malcolm thought about his son and the dreams he had for him. He had always encouraged Malik to love flying and to aim high. Malcolm was proud of Malik's passion but worried about what he might face because of the color of his skin. When Malcolm arrived at the airport, he quickly found out what had happened. He calmly walked to the security office. The officers recognized him immediately when he showed his official FAA badge. The room went quiet. Malik's father's presence changed everything. His calm and confident voice filled the room as he asked questions about why his son was being held and what the pilot's concerns were. Malcolm looked at Malik, who was sitting quietly but still scared. He held Malik's hand and told him, "You're safe now. I'm here, and no one will hurt you." Malik felt a warm feeling of relief. Seeing his father gave him strength and hope. The pilot who had called the police was standing nearby, avoiding eye contact. He knew he had made a mistake, but didn't know how to fix it. Malcolm didn't shout or get angry. Instead, he spoke clearly about how this situation was an example of racial bias and unfair treatment. He told the pilot that fear should never be the reason to judge someone, especially a child who only wanted to learn. Malcolm's words were firm but fair. He explained that everyone in aviation has a responsibility to be careful and kind. The pilot listened quietly, understanding that this was a lesson he needed to learn. The story began spreading quickly. Some people who were watching posted videos and shared the news on social media. The public started to see the injustice of the situation. Many people expressed anger and sadness. They talked about how often children and adults of color face suspicion just because of their skin color. Malik's story became a symbol of a larger problem: how racial profiling happens even in places that should be safe and welcoming. As the hours passed, Malik's father spoke to airport officials and FAA leaders. He demanded a full investigation into what had happened and asked for actions to prevent such incidents from happening again. The airport authorities agreed to review their security procedures and provide training to all staff about racial bias and respect. Malik was finally allowed to call his mother and tell her he was safe. Hearing his mother's voice made him feel even better. His family gathered at the airport to support him. They hugged him tightly, telling him how brave he was. The pilot who had called the police was temporarily suspended from flying at the airport. He was required to attend sensitivity training to understand the impact of his actions. This was a clear message from the FAA and airport authorities that such behavior would not be tolerated. Malik's father also decided to use this difficult moment to create something positive. He started planning a new program to encourage young students, especially those from minority communities, to explore careers in aviation. He wanted to make sure that children like Malik could feel welcome and supported in the world of flying. Malik was invited to speak at local schools and aviation events. He shared his story and talked about his dreams. His courage inspired many other children to believe in themselves. Malik's simple love for airplanes turned into a powerful message. about hope and change. Even though the experience was painful, Malik never stopped dreaming. He knew he wanted to fly, not just for himself, but to make the skies a better place for everyone. The airport, the FAA, and the community came together to learn from this event. It became a reminder that everyone deserves respect and fairness, no matter their age or skin color. Malik's story was just beginning. The fear and confusion he felt that day were real, but so was the love and support from his family and community. With his father's help, Malik was ready to take on the world, one step closer to the sky. After the tense and difficult moments Malik faced at the airport, everything changed when his father, Malcolm Harris, arrived. Malcolm was not just any man. He held an important and respected position as the Deputy Administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. This role made him one of the top leaders responsible for the safety and regulation of all air travel in the country. But to Malik, Malcolm was simply Dad, the man who had always encouraged him to dream big and loved him deeply. When Malcolm stepped into the airport terminal that afternoon, he wore a sharp, dark suit, his official FAA badge clipped to his jacket. His face was calm and serious, showing the weight of responsibility he carried every day. But there was also softness in his eyes when he thought of his son. The moment Malcolm walked into the security office where Malik was held, everything changed. The officers on duty immediately recognized Malcolm. They stood respectfully as he showed his identification and asked to speak with the supervisors. Malcolm's presence brought a quiet tension to the room. The pilot who had called the police earlier stood nearby, his face pale and uneasy. He had been watching the situation unfold and now realized the seriousness of his mistake. He had acted out of fear and suspicion without any real evidence. Now, faced with Malik's father, an authority figure with power and respect in the aviation world, he felt a mix of guilt and regret. Malcolm's voice was calm but firm as he asked the officers to explain why his son was being held. The officers described the pilot's concerns, the questions they had asked Malik, and the reason they detained him. Malcolm listened carefully, then looked down at his son. Malik sat quietly, still scared but relieved to see his father. Malcolm knelt beside him and gently took his hand. "You're safe now, Malik," he said softly. "I'm here, and I will. Make sure nothing bad happens to you." Malik felt a warmth spread through his chest, a mixture of relief and pride. His father was his protector, the man who would stand up for him no matter what. Malcolm then turned his attention to the pilot. The man shifted nervously, unsure how to respond. Malcolm spoke clearly and respectfully, pointing out the deep harm caused by the pilot's assumptions. He explained how Malik had done nothing wrong and that judging a child based on his appearance was wrong and dangerous. He reminded everyone that fear should never be the reason for unfair treatment, especially in aviation, where safety and trust are essential. The pilot looked down, embarrassed and silent. Malcolm's words were not just about this one incident, but about a larger issue that affected many people. Racial bias and fear sometimes clouded judgment, leading to unfair treatment of innocent individuals. Malcolm made it clear that such behavior would not be accepted under his leadership or anywhere in the FAA. As Malcolm spoke, the tension in the room slowly eased. The officers apologized for the misunderstanding and promised to review their procedures to prevent similar incidents. They returned Malik's notebook and pencil, which Malik clutched tightly, grateful to have them back. Outside the security office, a small crowd had gathered. Word had spread quickly, and many people had come to watch and listen. Some had already recorded parts of the incident on their phones. As Malcolm addressed the situation calmly but firmly, the crowd listened closely. Many were moved by Malik's story and his father's leadership. Soon reporters arrived, eager to hear from Malcolm and Malik. Cameras flashed as Malcolm spoke about the importance of fairness, respect, and opportunity for all people in aviation and beyond. He shared Malik's dream of becoming a pilot and how that dream should never be threatened by fear or prejudice. Malik's story quickly went viral. On social media, people from all over the country expressed their support for Malik and his family. They shared messages of hope and calls for change. Many related to the experience of being judged unfairly because of their skin color or background. The FAA and the airport authority responded publicly. They promised investigations and reforms, including better training for pilots, security staff, and airport employees, about racial bias and respectful treatment of all visitors. The pilot who had made the call was suspended from flying at the airport while the investigation was underway. He was required to attend diversity and sensitivity training, learning about how fear and assumptions could harm innocent people. Malcolm did not stop at demanding justice for his son. He used the attention to push for wider changes in aviation. He announced plans to create programs encouraging young people from minority communities to explore careers in aviation. He wanted children like Malik to see themselves as future pilots, engineers, air traffic controllers, and leaders in aerospace. Malik was invited to participate in these programs and even to speak at schools and aviation events. His courage and honesty inspired many others. He told his story simply: how he loved airplanes, how he was treated unfairly, and how he still believed in his dream. His words reached children and adults alike, reminding everyone of the importance of kindness and understanding. Malik's father continued to lead by example. In meetings and public speeches, he spoke about diversity, equity, and inclusion. He worked to make the aviation industry safer and more welcoming for everyone. His role gave him a platform to fight bias and to promote respect. Malik's family became closer through the experience. They supported each other and found strength in their love. Malik's mother, who had rushed to the airport as soon as she heard, held Malik tightly and told him how proud she was of him. His uncle, who had brought him to the airport that day, promised to always protect him and to teach others about the dangers of fear and prejudice. The pilot who made the call reflected deeply on his actions. After completing the required training, he wrote a letter of apology to Malik and his family. In the letter, he admitted his mistake and expressed regret for how his fear led to hurtful consequences. He promised to be more aware and careful in the future. The incident at the airport became a turning point, not just for Malik and his family but for the entire community. It sparked conversations about how racial bias affects people's lives, in many ways, even in places that should be safe and welcoming. Schools, airports, and organizations began programs to educate people about bias and to encourage respect and fairness. Malik's story was even turned into a children's book, titled "Sky's Not the Limit." The book shared his experience in a way that young readers could understand. It talked about dreams, courage, and the importance of standing up against unfairness. Malik became a symbol of hope for many children who faced similar challenges. Months later, Malik was seen at a youth aviation camp, learning to fly simulators and exploring airplanes up close. He smiled as he wore his pilot jacket and held his notebook full of drawings and notes. His dream was alive and stronger than ever. Malik knew that the road ahead might have challenges, but he also knew he was not alone. He had a family who believed in him, a community that supported him, and a father who was a leader fighting for change. Every day, Malik took one step closer to the sky. The pilot who had made the call also took steps to change. He became an advocate for fairness and worked with local groups to help prevent similar mistakes in the future. He learned that fear should never be the reason to judge or hurt others. Malik's story taught everyone a valuable lesson: that behind every face is a person with hopes and dreams, deserving of respect and kindness. His courage helped open doors and hearts. The airport where Malik was held made changes to its policies, ensuring that children and visitors were treated with dignity. Staff received regular training on bias and cultural awareness. Signs were posted reminding everyone that airports are places of welcome and safety for all. Malik's father continued his work at the FAA, pushing for policies that promoted diversity and inclusion. He met with leaders from all parts of the aviation world, sharing Malik's story and advocating for fairness. Malik grew up knowing that his dreams were not just about flying planes, but about making the skies a place where everyone could belong. He promised himself that one day he would be a pilot who welcomed and inspired others, no matter their background. The experience that started as a frightening moment became a powerful story of hope, justice, and change. Malik's journey showed the world that courage and love can overcome fear and prejudice. And so Malik's story, his father's leadership, and the community's support combined to create a future where the sky truly was not the limit. After the airport incident, Malik's life and the lives of those around him changed in many important ways. What had begun as a scary and unfair situation slowly turned into a story of hope, courage, and learning for many people. Malik and his family became well known, and the story was told in newspapers, on television, and all over the internet. People everywhere were talking about the event and what it meant for fairness and justice in America. Malik's father, Malcolm Harris, used his important role at the FAA to make sure the lessons from Malik's experience did not get forgotten. He knew that this was a chance to change things for the better, not only for his son but for many children and families who faced unfair treatment every day. He met with other leaders in aviation and government to talk about how to make airports and airplanes safer and more welcoming for everyone. One of the first things Malcolm did was to create new training programs for all airport and airline employees. These programs focused on understanding bias, the unfair ideas that people sometimes have about others based on their skin color, clothes, or where they come from. The training taught people how to treat all passengers with respect, kindness, and fairness. It also helped employees recognize when their own fears or assumptions might be wrong. The FAA made this training a requirement for everyone who worked. In airports and on planes, Malik's story was shared as a real-life example during the training. People learned how easy it was to make mistakes when fear or prejudice took over. They saw how important it was to listen carefully and not jump to conclusions, especially when dealing with children and families. The program included videos, discussions, and role-playing exercises that helped employees practice kindness and respect. The airport where Malik had been stopped also made important changes. They created new policies to protect children traveling, alone or with family. These policies included special ways to communicate with kids so they would not feel scared or confused. Airport security officers were trained to recognize that children with notebooks or interests in airplanes were often just curious and passionate about flying. There were clear rules to prevent children from being treated like threats without good reason. Malik became a symbol of hope and courage for many young people. Schools invited him to speak about his experience and about dreaming big despite challenges. Malik's talks were simple but powerful. He told students how much he loved airplanes and how scared he felt when he was stopped at the airport. But he also told them how important it was to stay brave and to believe in themselves. Malik shared his story not to make people angry, but to teach them about fairness and kindness. He reminded everyone that judging people by their appearance could hurt and stop people from reaching their dreams. He encouraged children to stand up against unfairness, to speak out when they saw it, and to support each other. Many children and parents reached out to Malik after his talks. They shared their own stories of unfair treatment and thanked him for speaking up. Malik realized that his experience, though difficult, gave him a chance to help others. He began to understand that his story was bigger than just him. It was about changing hearts and minds. Malik's family was very proud of him. His mother helped organize his school visits and encouraged him to keep sharing his story. His uncle, who had brought him to the airport that day, became an important supporter, helping Malik practice his speeches and teaching him about leadership and courage. Malcolm Harris, Malik's father, also used his position to work on new programs to encourage young people from minority communities to explore careers in aviation. He wanted to open doors for children who might not have had many opportunities before. The program offered scholarships, mentorships, and special camps where kids could learn about flying, engineering, and air traffic control. Malik was invited to take part in these programs. He attended summer camps where he learned to fly flight simulators, study airplane mechanics, and understand how airports operate. These experiences made his dream of becoming a pilot feel even more real. Malik worked hard in school, especially in math and science, because he knew those subjects were important for a career in aviation. At home, Malik's family created a space where his love for flying was encouraged. They filled his room with airplane models, posters, and books about aviation history. Malik's notebook, once held by airport security as suspicious evidence, was now a treasured item full of his ideas, drawings, and plans for the future. As Malik grew older, he faced new challenges, but he met them with the same bravery he showed at the airport. Sometimes people still made assumptions about him because of his skin color. But Malik was stronger now. He knew who he was and what he wanted. He learned to speak up calmly and confidently when he faced unfairness. The pilot who had called the police that day also changed. After his training and reflection, he became an advocate for fairness and respect in aviation. He spoke at events about the dangers of fear and bias, and worked to help airport staff understand how to treat all passengers equally. His apology to Malik's family was sincere, and over time he earned back the trust of many in the aviation community. The airport where Malik was stopped became a model for other airports across the country. They showed how to handle sensitive situations with care and respect. Other airports adopted similar policies and training programs, creating safer, kinder environments for all travelers. Malik's story also helped change how media talked about racial bias and children. Reporters, teachers, and leaders used his experience to explain why it was important to teach kindness and fairness from a young age. They stressed the power of listening, understanding, and supporting each other. One day, Malik was invited to meet with government officials to talk about policies that affected children and families. He shared his story honestly and thoughtfully, reminding leaders that children deserved protection and respect everywhere they went. His words were simple but powerful. They showed how even young voices could make a difference. Malik's story was turned into a children's book, written with help from his family and teachers. The book told the story of a boy who loved airplanes and dreamed of flying, who faced a scary moment but stayed brave and kind. The book was shared in schools and libraries, helping many children learn about courage, fairness, and hope. Malik's experience also inspired artists, writers, and filmmakers. They created paintings, stories, and videos that showed how unfairness could be overcome with love and courage. These works helped spread Malik's message even further. Malik never forgot the feeling of fear he had that day at the airport, but he also never forgot the love and support from his family and community. That experience shaped him into a person who wanted to help others and make the world a better place. As Malik looked ahead to his future, he dreamed of flying planes high in the sky, exploring new places, and inspiring others to chase their dreams. He wanted to be a pilot who made everyone feel welcome, no matter where they came from or what they looked like. Malik's story became a beacon of hope for many children who faced challenges because of who they were. It showed that with courage, support, and fairness, they could overcome obstacles and reach for the sky. Malik's family continued to stand by him, encouraging him every step of the way. They celebrated his successes and helped him learn from his mistakes. Together, they built a future full of possibility and promise. Malcolm Harris, as a leader at the FAA, kept working to make aviation better for everyone. He met with experts and community leaders to develop programs that promoted diversity, equity, and inclusion. His work helped create a safer and more welcoming environment in airports and airlines across the nation. Malik became involved in these efforts, sharing his experiences and ideas. He helped design programs that encouraged young people to explore aviation careers. His unique perspective as a young person who had faced unfairness made his voice important. Through speeches, community events, and school visits, Malik reached thousands of children and adults. His message was always about kindness, respect, and following your dreams. He showed that even when life is hard, hope and courage can light the way. Malik's story reminded people that everyone deserves respect and a chance to succeed. It showed the power of family, community, and leadership to create change. His experience taught that fear should never lead to judgment and that understanding is the key to a better world. Malik's dream of flying was not just about planes, it was about soaring above prejudice and fear, helping others, and making the sky a place where everyone could belong. His journey was only beginning, but he was ready for whatever came next. Through his courage and the support of those who loved him, Malik became more than just a boy who loved airplanes. He became a symbol of hope, change, and the power of dreams. After everything that had happened, the airport incident, the changes in policies, Malik's growing voice, and his family's support, Malik's journey took on a new and inspiring chapter. This final part of his story was about how Malik's dreams and actions created a lasting impact far beyond what anyone could have imagined. As Malik grew older, he never forgot the lessons he had learned from that difficult day. The fear, confusion, and pain he had felt when the pilot called the police had been hard to bear, but it also made him stronger. It taught him that sometimes life can be unfair, but that doesn't mean you have to give up. Instead, you can use your experiences to help others and make the world better. Malik's passion for flying only grew stronger. He spent more time learning about airplanes, how they worked, and what it took to be a pilot. He read books, watched videos, and joined aviation clubs. He dreamed of flying not just for himself, but for all the children who had been treated unfairly because of who they were. In school, Malik worked hard. He knew that to become a pilot, he needed to be good at math, science, and technology. Sometimes, he faced challenges. There were still moments when people judged him or doubted his abilities because of his skin color. But Malik was determined not to let those moments stop him. Instead, he used them as motivation to prove that he belonged just as much as anyone else in the sky. Malik's family remained his biggest supporters. His parents encouraged him every day, reminding him that his dreams were important and that he had the strength to reach them. His mother helped him with his studies. His father shared stories about aviation and leadership, and his uncle cheered him on at every step. The programs his father helped create at the FAA gave Malik opportunities that few kids had. He attended special aviation camps, met pilots and engineers, and even got to visit air traffic control towers. Each experience deepened his love for flying and made him more confident about his future. Malik also became more involved in speaking out about fairness and respect. He traveled to schools, community centers, and conferences, sharing his story and encouraging others to stand up against unfairness. People admired his honesty and courage. Many young people told Malik that his words helped them feel less alone and more hopeful. Over time, Malik's voice reached even higher levels. He was invited to speak at national events and meetings, where important decisions were made about aviation and civil rights. He talked about the need to make airports and airplanes welcoming for everyone, no matter their race, background, or appearance. At one special event, Malik met the first black pilot to fly for a major airline in his country. This pilot had also faced challenges but had worked hard to succeed. Meeting this role model inspired Malik even more. He realized that he was part of a larger history of people breaking barriers and creating new paths for future generations. Malik's story was shared in newspapers, magazines, and online platforms. Documentaries were made about his experience, and the changes it inspired. Artists painted portraits of Malik and scenes from his life, celebrating his courage and hope. Through it all, Malik remained humble and focused on his dream. He knew that flying was not just about being in the cockpit, but about inspiring others to believe in themselves. He wanted to be a pilot who welcomed all passengers with kindness and understanding, someone who would use his position to promote fairness. Eventually, Malik applied to flight schools and aviation programs with excitement and determination. His hard work paid off, and he was accepted into one of the top flight academies. There, he trained hard, learning everything about flying planes safely and confidently. Malik faced tough exams, long hours of study, and challenging flight lessons. Sometimes the pressure was overwhelming, but he remembered the support from his family, the lessons from his past, and the dreams of all the children who looked up to him. These gave him strength to keep going. During his training, Malik became known not only for his skills, but for his leadership and kindness. He helped other students, especially those who felt nervous or unsure. Malik shared his story with them, showing that courage could come from even the hardest moments. One day, Malik received a special message from the FAA. They wanted him to join a program designed to increase diversity among commercial pilots. This program offered extra training, mentorship, and support to help students from underrepresented communities succeed in aviation. Malik was proud to be part of this program. It felt like a full circle, from being stopped and judged at an airport, to now being a respected pilot in training, supported by the FAA. He knew this was a sign that real change was happening. Meanwhile, Malik's family continued their work to improve aviation safety and fairness. Malcolm Harris used his position to push for more inclusive hiring practices, better training programs, and support networks for minority employees in aviation. Malik's mother volunteered with organizations that helped children and families facing discrimination. His uncle worked in community outreach, helping spread awareness about bias and the importance of respect. Malik also started a nonprofit organization with the help of his family and friends. The organization focused on inspiring and supporting young people interested in aviation. They offered scholarships, mentorship programs, and workshops where children could learn about flying, science, and leadership. The nonprofit grew quickly, reaching children in many cities and towns. Malik enjoyed visiting the workshops, talking to kids, and sharing his story. He saw the same spark in their eyes that he had when he first dreamed of flying. Malik's story had also inspired changes in school curriculums. Teachers began including lessons on fairness, bias, and courage in their classes. Students learned how to respect differences and stand up for each other. Malik's experiences became part of national conversations about race, fairness, and opportunity. In America, leaders from different fields invited him to speak about how communities could work together to build a more just society. Despite all his success, Malik stayed grounded. He remembered the fear he felt at the airport and the love that helped him overcome it. That love came from his family, friends, and community, people who believed in him when others doubted. As Malik prepared to graduate from flight school, he reflected on his journey. It had been long and sometimes difficult, but full of lessons and growth. He was ready to become a pilot, to fly planes, and to be a role model for others. Malik also planned to keep working for change. He wanted to use his voice and position to continue fighting against bias and unfairness. He dreamed of a world where no child would ever feel scared or judged because of who they were. On the day of his graduation, Malik wore his pilot's uniform with pride. Family, friends, and mentors gathered to celebrate. Malcolm Harris, his proud father, spoke about Malik's courage and determination. He said that Malik's story was a reminder that dreams could come true if people believed in themselves and stood up for what was right. Malik gave a speech too. He thanked everyone who helped him along the way and shared his hopes for the future. He encouraged young people to follow their dreams no matter the obstacles. He said that every person deserved respect and kindness. After graduation, Malik began flying as a co-pilot for a regional airline. His first flights were both exciting and nerve-wracking, but he felt ready. He knew the responsibility of keeping passengers safe, and making them feel comfortable was huge. Malik also made a promise to himself. Whenever he saw someone being treated unfairly, he would speak up. He would be a pilot who listened, understood, and cared. He wanted to make sure that every passenger felt safe and respected, just like he wanted to feel when he flew. Malik's story continued to inspire many. He received letters from young people thanking him for being a role model. They said his courage gave them hope and made them believe in their own dreams. As Malik's career grew, he never forgot the power of community. He stayed connected with the nonprofit he helped start, mentoring new students and organizing events. He worked with his father and others to keep pushing for fairness in aviation. Malik's life showed that one moment, no matter how hard, does not define a person's future. Instead, it can be the beginning of something greater. With courage, support, and a dream, anyone can rise above fear and prejudice. Malik's journey was a story of hope, a story about believing in yourself, standing up for justice, and reaching for the sky. It was a story that reminded the world that everyone deserves a chance to fly. And so Malik's story continues, inspiring new generations to dream big, to be brave, and to make the world a better place.